If you put core values on paper and you've never looked at them or talked about them again, they're not useful.
Adam Whitney, he's a current Marine Corps officer who's running a 7-figure real estate wholesaling company called Blackjack Real Estate.
So I was starting like negative 200K. I'm actually a pretty good implementer. Like in 2019 and 2020, Blackjack's was over $2 million top line.
But what you're really good at, and the reason that you're able to find success in Blackjack and all of your other businesses, is you execute.
Like you only lose when you quit.
We're going to talk about building systems. We're going to talk about team building, and we're going to be talking about marketing channels that are working in today's market. Welcome to the Zeroed In podcast. I'm your host, John Lallande, a seasoned real estate investment expert and former Marine recon sniper. This podcast is designed for those seeking effective strategies to increase revenue growth through strategic hiring, leadership, and effective tracking. Our focus here is clear and direct. We provide actionable insights from successful founders and growth experts. Whether you're establishing a new business or aiming to scale an existing one, our episodes offer the essential advice you need for practical business growth. Lock and load, zero in, and get ready to scale. Welcome to Zeroed In, where we talk about the no BS, straightforward way to build businesses. Now, today we have a good friend of mine, Adam Whitney. He's a current Marine Corps officer who's running a 7-figure real estate wholesaling company called Blackjack Real Estate out of the Panhandle in Central Florida. So today we're going to talk about building systems. We're going to talk about team building, and we're going to be talking about marketing channels that are working in today's market. Adam, thanks for coming on, man. I'm excited about this.
Pumped to be here, man. Pumped to be here.
Awesome. So let's start. You and I met at a real estate meetup, a real estate military meetup, right? And at the time, I think you had just locked up your first SMS deal. You were doing SMS. I think you just had a VA.
Cold call.
Cold calling. Okay, so cold calling. So you went from that to partnering and and maintaining a 7-figure business. Plus, you're a part of at least 4 or 5 other companies, whether you're an owner, a founder in, or you have some equity in, all while you're in the military, right? So talk to me about, what did that growth look like? How did you first find out about wholesaling all the way up to where you're at now? Let's just summarize it for the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I got really interested in real estate. I think I've known for a long time real estate was a vehicle I needed to be in. I just didn't know enough. I had discovered the financial independence retire early community, which is just a crazy community that talks about, saving 50% of your income and paying off your debt. And I got really financially healthy, no debt, saved up a little bit of cash in my bank account, and then bought my first house. That I moved to a military location. I bought a house there. I lived in it for a while and then rented it out. And then bought a few turnkey rentals, where I wasn't like getting them at a discount. I was putting 25% down, but they were cash flowing in Milwaukee. And this was like 16, 17, 18, 19 timeframe with that I was doing all this. And then in 20, I went to Flip Hacking Live. It was virtual. I was stationed out in 29 Palms. Otherwise, I would not have been able to go. It went virtual because of COVID. And I went to this event 3 days online, and it blew my mind. And I took away really 2 primary things from that, which was, number one, you have to buy houses at a discount to make the numbers make sense from a growth perspective, right? Because you can always refinance all your cash out if you get them deep. And then number 2 is you have to be able to raise private capital. 2 things that I didn't know. I didn't know marketing. I didn't know sales. I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't know any of it. But I went to that event and I was just blown away by how these people were getting up on stage like normal investors. I remember Chris and Heather Logan out of Tampa talking about cold calling and basically gave away their whole system. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like, I think I can do that. I think I can go do marketing and talk to people and see if I can buy their houses for cash. It'll help me go faster. So I joined that group in 2020 and started just like consuming everything and putting it into practice. Started building my own business and starting to see success. And eventually I did a merger and acquisitions with Bill Allen's company, Blackjack. And I was in Central Florida. He was in the Panhandle. just merged the two companies, which came with its own set of challenges. And then I've been kind of making it efficient, fixing systems that had broken over the years, getting the right team members on board. And it's taken a couple of years to get it to where it's at. I think it's in a good spot now. It's postured for us to go to 3 million. I think it will be this year.
Nice. And so before you partnered with Bill and you joined Blackjack, what was your business like? Did you have any employees? Did you have VAs? Or was it just you running and gunning while you're in the military?
No, it was really cool because I was in California and my market was Florida. So I could get up and work at 4 a.m. I was a one-man show. I was going to do cold calling because it was cost effective, and it was highly effective in 2020 and 2021.
Oh, yeah.
So I personally got a dialer, Mojo dialer, right out of the gate, started to put systems together, and I just got on the phones. I was on the phones for about 38 minutes, and I was like, this sucks. I'm not doing this cold call thing. And I immediately went out and hired a VA who just started smiling and dialing. And once she was able to get leads to me and I could talk to the leads directly, it was a lot better. I was way better on the phones when I wasn't dealing with hostile people. But yeah, it was just me and then me and a VA for almost a year.
How many people do you think were at Flip Backing Live that year of 2020?
There were probably 1,500 people because it was virtual. It was quite a bit.
A lot, right? And how many people do you think took the information that was given there and built a 7-figure company that's hit 7 figures by right now? It's February 2024.
Oh, maybe a handful.
Right. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people get in rooms. They do the first step, which the first step is to get into rooms where other people are doing the thing. They're making the money, right? But then something happens. Something happens where they feel like this won't work for me, and they don't know why. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that out of 1,500 people, maybe 5 to 10 actually took the information that was provided there and built 7-figure companies?
Yeah, I think a lot of people see what other people have or what they've built, and they think that they want it, and then they figure out what it takes and what people are doing to actually build it, because they're only seeing the highlight reel. They don't see the ups and downs. They don't see the risk associated with any of this stuff, the type of marketing spend, the cash flow issues that these businesses have. They see the good and they're like, oh yeah, I want to make all this money. And then when they go to do what it takes, and it takes what it takes, nobody has it easy. Like there is not an investor in the country doing direct to seller it just comes easy to them. They just got all the money and they can spend it all on marketing. It's hard. It takes what it takes. So when they hit that, they're like, nah, this isn't for me. Their why is usually not strong enough. I don't think for me, I was destined, and I was like, I do not want a job when I get out of the military at all. Like I cannot get a job. If I get a job, I felt like I'd be a failure. I'm about to be out of the military, and I'm thankfully positioned to not get a job. Hopefully I don't have to get one. I made enough money last year. I think I'll be okay.
And so when you walked into Blackjack, it's hard enough to build a company, because when you're building a company, you've got all of these unknowns, and especially if you're growing fast, you can't see everything all the time, right? But you have a pretty good idea of the fundamentals, of the basics of how you built the company, right? So if you started the company by yourself, there's a good chance that at some point you sat in the sales seat. Pretty good chance, right? And there's a really good chance that you sat in the marketing seat where you started the marketing. Because without those two things, it'd be pretty difficult to have a business, right? And so, especially in our industry and wholesaling, direct to seller, it's almost impossible to get around marketing and sales, right? It is. And so walk me through going into a business that was already set up, that had done 7 figures plus, multi 7 figures a year. But a real estate wholesaling company changes almost every year. Sometimes we have streaks where they go 2 years and they don't need to change, but they always need to change, right? They do not. What worked in 2020, cold calling and SMS, does not work anymore. And what worked before that doesn't work anymore. So walking into a business that had all of these moving parts already, all of these employees, what do you diagnose first? How do you do it?
Fortunately for me, well, I look at the landscape, the people, and then I also looked at the KPIs and the numbers. And I think a lot of people assume like, oh man, you walked into this well-oiled machine. The truth was I walked into the money, all the business, in the merger and acquisition, all the money got siphoned out of the business by the previous owner, who became my partner, by the way, Bill, and which was totally fair, by the way, no qualms there. And everything that was scheduled to close the day I took over was leaving the business. So I had nothing incoming. Everything was zeroed out, no debt, obviously. And I did have a line of credit for the business to help me like spend money on marketing, right? So, but everything that was closing in July and August that was previously locked in before July was not coming to the business. So I was starting like negative $200K, and I had to get really, really efficient. So I just went in and looked at every single dollar, every dollar. I analyzed the dollars that were spent the last 2 years. I looked at what dollars we were spending, what we could get rid of. I brought in cold calling to the company at that time because it was a really economical marketing channel, and I wasn't doing what they were doing before, which was spending a bunch of money on mail and PPL and PPC and stuff. Although maybe I probably should have been. I just didn't know what I didn't know. I was a bit scared. I had some fear. So,
I mean, as you should, right? Because you went from, you were obviously closing deals. You've been doing real estate for a long time, but you were not handed a business on a silver platter that was just running. And a lot of people know who you are, right? And a lot of people know Blackjack. I don't think people know as much as, like I do. And I've heard people, well, Adam has walked into this business, right, that was already doing, it wasn't like that, right? And even if it was like that, where you had a bunch of cash reserves, maintaining a wholesale business, you can kill one like that. I've seen people go negative from one bad hire, right? One bad hire, they hire the wrong sales manager, and their business immediately goes in the negative, right? So you were able to diagnose, you were able to look at the marketing, right? What was next? So you started implementing cold calling, and you fixed, I'm guessing you made some changes in the marketing department. What's the next thing that you look at and to take the business to the next level?
Yeah, from there it was the sales. I had inherited one sales member. She had been with the company for a long time. She's a good closer. She's really talented, but not necessarily aligned with how aggressive I am and the growth patterns that I wanted. But she super loyal to the team. She stayed on. She was fighting in the trenches with us while I was kind of figuring life out. And it honestly took me, it's still something that I'm refining my skills on. But I got the marketing down pretty quick. Like I had a really good grasp on marketing, dollar in, dollar out, how it works, how I can generate quality leads and all that. That was easy for me. And I took that over personally. And I did do some sales myself. I did close deals myself, but I wasn't day on, stay on because I'm still active duty. So I had to rely on my sales team. And I probably tried to hire like no less than 8 to 10 salespeople over the next probably 12 to 18 months, almost all a fail. Actually, I would argue they were all failures on my part.
So why do you think marketing came so easy to you? And what exactly, and for people that marketing doesn't come easy to, right? Because for you, you might have just walked in and said, okay, I could fix this. But for people that don't understand marketing, right? They don't even know what they're looking for. Maybe they've got a business, they're doing all cold calling, so they're really doing, sales the entire time. Walk me through, what did you look at and why do you feel like you're so good at marketing?
I had the one massive benefit I got was being able to look at previous data, right? So at the time, Blackjack had done, like in 2019 and 2020, Blackjack's was over $2 million top line. So like in 2019, they did like 3,200,000 deals, and I could see that data. I knew we spent like $800K on marketing, and it produced $3 million of top line. So I could see consistent data that said, if you spend this, you'll get it, somewhere around this out, so long as your conversion is right, and if you can, even at 3-to-1 at scale, if you spend $1 million and you bring 3 in, is different than if you spent 30,000 and bring 90 in, right? Even though the return is the same at 33%, that amount of money capital on top that you have, A, for profit, most importantly, but B, to spend on more marketing systems, people, and things like that is exponential, just because it's at a different scale level. So I had the benefit of seeing hindsight. I could see the data. I just knew if I could spend the money consistently on marketing, I had a good enough team to convert that money into dollars. And I felt very confident I could do it at, 3-to-1, 2 to 3-to-1 without even being that good.
Yeah. And what Adam's saying is, if you're spending $1 million, you're making 3. Well, your employees are still, $45,000, $60,000, $80,000 a year. Your fixed costs stay the same. Your CRM costs relatively the same. Your fixed costs, so your margin actually will be much better at $3 million than at $1 million. And what I see a lot of people do, they make the mistake and they go, okay, it's just me. I should be running my business at, 30% profit margin. So it's just me. I'll make $1 million a year and I'll take home, $300K. There's no, you should be taking home much more than that, right? If at the beginning,
at least 60% if you're by yourself.
If you're by yourself, at the beginning, your numbers look much better, right? You're converting much better. You should be converting better, right? You should have eyes on more of your leads. And at scale, your cost per lead goes up, right? Because at the beginning, you might be able to just mail foreclosures, right? You might have a cheaper cost per lead. As you scale, a lot of those things can go up. Your fixed costs stay the same, right? So what do you do if you don't have data? So let's say you're starting, you walked in, you had the huge advantage of having that data, right? But what if you want to spend the money? What if you're like, man, I need to make this work. I'm going to go all in on black, right? And I'm going to spend my money. I don't have any past data though. All I know is I'm good at sales. I can close. And I'm what should I expect? How do you figure out what to expect?
Yeah, I think if you're good at sales and you feel really confident you can convert, I think it's just responsibly stepping up the marketing. But just know, you have to spend the money consistently over an entire year. The money doesn't come in on a straight line. You don't convert on a straight line. That's not the way the world works. If you started from 0 on January 1 and you're spending, say, $5,000 a month, you probably make nothing in January unless you get some low-hanging fruit. You might close a deal or get a deal in February, but you really start to stack the deals up in March. So when I spend money on marketing in January, I spent $60,000. That money gets realized in February, March, and April. It doesn't get realized in January. It's probably the latter part of that. So if you're good at closing, you must spend the money consistently. Now, that is predicated off the fact that A, you're good at closing, and B, you are actually on top of all your leads and following up with them, because that's, those leads do convert. I tell our team there's no bad leads, only bad salespeople.
My favorite quote.
So, but yeah, you spend the money. I mean, the leads, there's some industry norms too.
Yeah, talk about that. How do you find those industry norms if you're starting out? How do you know, I've got $40,000. If I spend this, should I make money? Or, if I've got $5,000, how much should I make off of $5,000? What if I only have $1,000 a month? What should I do? How do you go find out that? How do you find that data and what you should expect on it?
Well, I think the shortcut for people is to be a part of, groups, people doing it, right? Masterminds, things like that. Getting in the right rooms where you can look at somebody else's business and genuinely know, how many leads does it take to get a contract, and how many contracts close, how many don't close. So just peeking behind the curtain of other people's stuff. And by and large, you should be closing, 1 out of every 20 to 25 leads across any channel. If anything's outside of that, it's either a really tough, high effort channel like cold calling. But everything should be about 1 to 20 to 25 or better, in my opinion, just looking at our data.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we do for a lot of our students is we say, hey, look, these are the industry norms for every single conversion. These are how many leads will convert into a qualified lead, meaning someone that you actually spoken to, they have a house that they are looking to sell, right? Out of this many qualified leads, this many should turn into an appointment. Out of this many appointment, this many should hit offers, this many should turn into contracts, and this many should close, right? So that way, when you're just at the beginning, kind of spraying and praying, throwing money at marketing, and 3 months goes by and you go, well, shit, I haven't closed a deal yet. You can go back and you can say, well, where am I deficient, right? Are my leads converting to qualified leads? Let's start there. And then are my qualified leads converting into appointments? Where do I need to focus? And where's my biggest area of opportunity, right? Because I might be qualifying all of my leads and booking a bunch of appointments, but none of them are converting into contracts, which means I just suck at closing. So we need to work on that. That's your one thing. Or none of your leads are converting into qualified leads. There's a couple of things. We got to check your numbers, right? Make sure that your numbers aren't being marked as spam. Are you double dialing and then texting them, right? And then dialing them again, right? What's the frequency that you're hitting them? When are you hitting them? There's so many things that we can dive into on a high level, but without understanding at least the industry norm, which I love that you brought that up, the industry norm, you're just kind of playing in the dark, right? Yep. And you don't even know why you suck. So you don't know how to get better.
It's a big funnel. It's a big funnel. At the top of the funnel, you have lead generation, which it's easy to go pay for leads. It's not even that hard. You have to dump leads into the top of the funnel. Then you have to, from those leads, then you have to set appointments. Then you have to make offers. Then you have to sign contracts and you have to close contracts. Like at its very essence, it's a funnel that goes just like that. And if you're a lot of people don't realize they're not generating enough leads, or they don't realize how much, like you said, a couple things that are death taxes and you got to double dial, right? Like if you knew what these other companies are doing to get somebody on the phone. We closed a month ago or 2 months ago, we closed an $80,000 wholesale fee. We called that guy from 7 different numbers. He came into us, website lead. We called them from 7 different numbers every single day, multiple times a day, just to get them on the phone, just to have the conversation. And if you're not willing, or if your mind's not open to like what it takes, because I said earlier, it takes what it takes. If your mind's not open to what it takes, then it's not like you're gonna be like, oh, this just doesn't work for me. No, it does work for you.
Yeah.
It works for a lot of people who are pretty normal dudes and dudettes. So.
And what I love that you just said is most people don't understand the extent that successful companies go to convert into revenue, right? To convert leads into revenue. They just don't. When they're getting started, they think nobody would put this much effort. There's no way. But when you see successful companies, I mean, they're pulling data, they're scrubbing it. I've seen people that are looking up the owners on Facebook, right? All just to increase their profit. And so I love that you talked about that. You speak about that just knowing what you should be doing makes it so much easier, right? You should be double dialing. Sometimes you'll have to call a seller every week for a year to get a contract. And if you didn't know that, you might just call them 3 times and say, oh yeah, I'm done. Or you might send out the funny thing that I did when I started out is, I heard about wholesaling and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And then I found out that people send out mailers. They send out direct mail pieces. So I didn't know that there were companies that would send them out for you. I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing mailers. So I got on like Word and I just basically made a postcard and had my face on it. I had like a bunch of pictures of houses. It was terrible, right? And I printed out like 300 of them, which I didn't know what they should cost. So I'm pretty sure I spent like $500. And I was in the military and I was broke. But I was like, man, all this $500, I'll probably get at least 250 phone calls and I'll close at least 10 deals. So I could probably turn this $500 into, $1 million. It's like the way that my brain was, I had no idea what numbers to even go off of. And so I took all these postcards. I had to print the little addresses. So I would like put the little sticker addresses and I would put them on there. Again, no idea that there were companies that could do this for you. And then I sent them out, right? I sent out 300 postcards. And
did you get like one phone call?
I got a phone call that told me to take them off the list. But the funny part is every time my phone rang for the next like 3 months, I was like, oh, it's a lead. And so I was answering it. This is John. Can I help you? And I was really expecting a deal from that. And it wasn't until I started doing texting and then later down the road, I revisited direct mail and I got into a group. And I asked, like, how many postcards do you typically have to send out to get a deal?
Like
and somebody
5,000.
told me, like, yeah, it was like there for, at the time, it was like 70, it was in California. They were like, I think I send out like 7,500 per deal. And I'm like, what? 7,500 for one deal? They're like, yeah, 7,000. And the first thing I'm thinking is like, how do you even print out that many labels? so just, it all is perspective of the people that are doing it on a high level are just doing things that you couldn't even imagine. And when you understand that, that's when you start to really become successful. So I want to shift here. I know we talked a lot about getting to some level of success. Once you've found that level, scaling is a whole nother ballgame, right? And you mentioned you had 8 to 10 bad hires. I'm probably right there with you with the amount of bad hires, and even more bad hires is bad leadership, where they were probably good hires and I just sucked at leadership. So I would yell at them and fire them instead of coaching them. So talk to me about your failed hires. Let's dive into why you think they might have been bad hires in the first place, right? What do you know now that you didn't know back then? How are you hiring?
Yeah, well, first off, it was not their fault. It was 100% my fault. And I didn't know what I wanted to do was just hire some slick salesperson to come in and crush it and close deals. And I wanted to not look at it, touch it, think about it. I just wanted to generate leads. And I had some onboarding. Don't get me wrong. We have systems and process. We've got a CRM. We've got things mapped out and all that stuff. But I wasn't really doing what it took to lead in the sales side, which is really number one, like daily coaching and accountability. Not like when I feel like coaching and accountability, but legitimate daily coaching and accountability. That means really talking about the same things over and over again. Whatever your sales process is reinforcing the fundamentals, listening to calls, giving feedback on calls, getting interaction and practicing, deliberate practice to refine skills, and then looking at the results of those repetitions they're getting that are live on the phones with sellers and seeing where they can improve and constantly turning that dial. I didn't do that, any of that. I paid for sales coaching multiple times. Every year I pay for sales coaching. Every single year I've done that. I knew it was really important, but you bring in an outside coach and it can create exponential growth in your company if you then implement it consistently for the rest of the year. Like, that person is not there to be your sales director. They're there to give you those tools that you need to do the thing. And I failed to do that. So I brought in all these people and, person after person, I'd either burn them out or they just weren't a good fit initially. And I really didn't do I didn't do enough to vet it. We have a hiring process, we use Culture Index, and we would go against it sometimes. I'm like, no, this person's fine. They're really hungry. They'll be good at it. So there's just a lot of things, and it's all my fault. So I think that it's a challenge. You really have to, just like you have to really take care of your leads and all that stuff, you also have to take care of your people. Training and accountability is taking care of your people. And we know this, you and I, military, like every day of your life is all about training and accountability. It's a 1 to 3 leader to lead ratio all the way from the top to the bottom. 1 leader to 3 humans. Every aspect of their life is accountable. And here I am ghost riding my sales department.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably fine.
One of my favorite quotes that I took from the military, and it's funny because when I was boot Lance Corporal Lallande, I hated this thing. It bothered me so much. And I remember I was in urban sniper school the first time that this happened. And I just asked my sniper partner to go hang up my target. Everybody had fresh new targets, and I look over and my target's a mess still, right? And I was like, dude, I thought I asked you to hang it up. And he didn't hear me. He had his ear pro in, right? And the instructor comes over to me. I was like, why is your target not hung up? I was like, oh, it was I asked somebody else to do it, but they didn't hear me.
Go find a pole pig.
And hey, that was the first thing. That one didn't resonate with me as much. But he said, inspect what you expect, right? And I love that because the military really does a good job of teaching leadership, right? There's a lot of things that are really inefficient, but leadership, they do a really good job at teaching it. And inspect what you expect means, yes, you expect your team to have a certain standard. But unless you are inspecting that standard, there's no telling that it actually gets done. And so what I see a lot of people do as a mistake is they give the biggest part of their business away and they don't keep an eye on it. They let it go. And I've made this mistake 100%. I've made this mistake too, where I was even doing the right things. I was doing the first part right, where I was training every single day. And I was training and I was building out these spreadsheets so I could track how well they were doing on the role plays and how well they were able to understand the script and the process. And that was all I was doing. And at the time I was like, I'm the best leader ever. I'm the best there is. No one's better than me. No one's training their team like I am. I had spent, tens of thousands of dollars on sales coaching, and my results weren't getting any better for months. Like they were getting worse. And I was like, what is going on? Maybe my sales coaching just sucks. So then I went and I started listening to some of my calls, and my team wasn't following the process. They would come on and role play. They would follow the process on the role play, and then they would just go do whatever they want, whatever was comfortable, right? And the results would show that. And so what Adam's saying, and we could talk about this for, another 20, 30 minutes, is just investing in your team isn't enough. If it was that easy, everybody would just go hire the best salespeople and then go sip pina coladas on the beach while their team just closes a bunch of deals. It's not that easy, right? You need to actually inspect everything that you expect, make sure that they're following the process, and have a daily rhythm for that. Your sales team is the engine for your business. The leads are the gas, right? And so you need to check in on your engine. You need to make sure that it's working properly, that's following the system that it's supposed to follow, right? So I love that. So one of the things that I love that you did as well is you just said, it's all my fault, right? And you're a huge supporter of extreme ownership. And I think that you, of all people, right, you live by that. So taking that into consideration, what things did you see in your interviewing process? What was flawed about your interviewing process? Obviously, with better leadership, maybe they would have found success. But how do you know when you've got a rock star sales rep? What are you looking for when you get somebody like Lindsay, right? That's going to take it, and she's going to take full ownership and will literally lose sleep at night if deals aren't closing. She's going to make it happen. How do you find those people?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. No, I mean, number one is like you think you need a slick sales rep. I need Belfort or Grant Cardone or somebody. You don't, no matter where you're hiring, whether it's sales or something else, like first and foremost, core values match, right? And for us, team player, growth mindset, accountability, character, these are all core values. Like if any of those have red flags, it should be a no-go. And I can remember specifically, so we have a tight hiring process. I just didn't follow it. We run the Who method from the, I think Gary Schwartz or somebody is the author of that book, which is basically multiple interviews, a screening 15-minute interview into a longer hour-long interview where you go really deep, and then into, maybe into like if it's sales, maybe it's going into kind of role play type interview to see skill level and that kind of thing if they make it that far. So, but I'd come out of these interviews and I'd be like, their culture index profile's a little bit off, but I really like them. I think they can do it. And I'm also hiring out of pain too, right? Like I need a good sales rep because I don't have the bandwidth to go in and do it. I could do it. Like there is no time for me to do that component of the business, and it is not my highest and best use. Like I'm just not that, I'm talented enough, but I'm not the best person. So then I would see these red flags, we talk about them, and I'd say, I think this is the right person. I would just go forward anyways, rather than accepting the brutal facts in front of you and saying like, nope, just being so ruthless to your hiring standards and holding yourself accountable, which I did not. Core values, red flag, like should have been do not pass go, or personality profile. We're looking for something very specific in Culture Index. Why am I hiring against it? I said, this is the profile we're looking for, yet I'm hiring some other profile. Why am I doing that? And there's so many things along this. It's a well thought out process. It works, but I'm not following it. I'm doing it, but I'm not being accountable to it. And it's so funny too, because like hiring is hard. It's hard to find people. Any business owner in any industry is like, I can't find good people, right? Especially in sales. Sales is a really unique skill to hire for. And I think that we look at hiring like it's its own thing. It's marketing. I need to get enough people at the top of my hiring funnel to have enough conversations to be able to make a good judgment based on the standards I've set for hiring. Like if I'm looking at 3 people, I turn on an Indeed ad and I look at 3 people and I hire one. I definitely didn't do enough work, right? Like I just didn't do enough work and I settled.
You know what? What you said felt like a punch in the gut from a year ago. I got like a little like slither of PTSD from what I've dealt with, because you said you were hiring out of pain. And I've been in that exact same situation. And this is the number one mistake I see people make when they're hiring, is they're hiring because they need somebody. And what happens when you need someone, similar to when you're really lonely and you're looking for a girlfriend, you're probably you might overlook maybe her past job history, or maybe her past history of what she's done with like previous exes, right? You might just overlook that because you really want a partner. You really want a life partner where you're content with where you're at, with where you are, where your business is. You're going to see those things, and you're not going to be so needy, and you're not going to ignore them, right? So I see a lot of people when they really need a sales rep, they hate doing sales. They're like, I hate it. This is the worst thing ever, but I know I need to do it. So I'm just going to go look for somebody. And they find somebody that has job hopped, right? They worked for one company for 6 months and another company for 5 months and then 3. And, they don't call any references, or maybe they do call a reference and the reference doesn't say, they don't say the best things, but they also don't say the worst thing. And they just overlook it because they need that person anyway. And your team is going to default to the performance level of your lowest person, not the opposite. A lot of people think, I'm going to bring this new guy in, he's going to do the best. They're going to see who is doing the worst, right? And so when you do that and you bring that person onto your team, that's the culture now, right? The culture is somebody that doesn't hold themselves accountable. Maybe they do job hop. They probably job hop for a reason, because they aren't able to stick with anything. They have no consistency. And a lot of people are too optimistic when they hire, right? Instead of looking for the red flags, instead of looking for the reasons why they shouldn't hire that person, they look for the reasons why they should. And I know for me, when that shifted, when I started calling, references and started really just digging and going, why shouldn't I hire this person? Give me a reason not to hire this person. Are they not a good culture fit, right? All of those things that help me get better people on my team, and my culture just changed massively. So it's such a good point. Now, why are core values so important? Because everybody talks about core values, right? Everybody's like, yeah, my core values are this. A lot of people don't follow them. Why are they so important? Why not just go hire, Grant Cardone, who is going to tell you to screw off if you tell him what to do, but who cares? He closes deals all the time.
Here's the thing. If you put core values on paper and you've never looked at them or talked about them again, they're not useful. You don't need to hire to them because you don't even believe them. I think if you have core values that are truly aligned with your principles and the principles you want the company to really embrace and the culture you want to embrace, that's when that's when it's super valuable. If you don't believe in them, if you don't believe them, if they're just a paper drill, then they're useless. And like I talk about our core values all the time. I mean, I genuinely believe our core values. Like my impact, my mission is not to make, is actually, money is not important to me. Impact on my team is the most important thing to me. To have good impact on my team, like the people in my ecosystem need to have core values alignment. They need to be like if you don't have a growth mindset, like you can come look at my friend circle. There's plenty of people who were maybe once in my life who are no longer in my life. Like I don't have room for that in my life. If you're not thinking with a growth mindset, if you're a victim, if you're fixed mindset, you're like, oh, you can't do that because like I just will stop talking to you. Like you will not be in my life. And I feel that same way about my team members. If they do take ownership for everything in their life, if they do want to get better every day truly and are willing to put in the work, like those are our core values. That is how I live my life. And that is how I expect my team to live their lives too. Otherwise, we're hiring the wrong people. We're letting the wrong people into our system. And honestly, when you do that, you're hurting your team. Like you owe your team. You owe it to your team to bring the right people in. Like you literally owe it to your team to bring the right people in. And every time you waver or you're not accountable to your hiring process or you just overlook a red flag or you don't want to call that reference or whatever it may be, you're failing your team.
And what we keep coming back to is, I feel like, especially when you're at the roughly $1 million a year mark in our industry, and maybe that's different in every industry, but you have a couple of employees, right? You have some people on your team. You've got a process, you've got a proven process to make money, and you're looking to scale. You pay for all of this education, right? And you know the things that you should, so you should be doing sales training. You should be taking care of your leads. You know that core values are important. But how many people actually implement on those things? And that's the biggest difference between the people that are able to scale versus the ones that aren't, is everybody knows these things that we should be doing. What I love you keep hitting on is you could build out all of these processes, right? You could have core values written. You can have a vision traction organizer, right? A VTO where you've got your 5-year vision for the company, and you could write that out every year and, have your core values, somewhere posted on your office. But if you don't talk about them daily and you don't implement that on every day, it's useless. There's no point of it, right? You might as well not even do it and just admit that. So I love that you keep coming back to implementation, which is interesting because you are a high visionary profile, right? Like by nature.
I'm actually a social profile.
Okay,
I'm a borderline architect. I don't know what other places would call that. Like I'm high I and D on the DISC or high AB on culture index.
Yeah, personality index.
Low C and D. Yeah. I do have kind of a visionary profile. My AD spread's pretty wide.
For people that have no idea what we're talking about, so visionary, right? What you typically hear, this comes from the book Traction. And a lot of people, when they hear visionary and integrator, they go, oh, I want to be a visionary so I can just sit in my chair and think all day. and I'll find my integrator to come do all the work for me, right? But really, visionary, they're thinking ahead, right? They're typically more future paced. They're thinking about how can we scale, how can we grow, what's good could come up that could kill us, right? They're thinking about the future. They're typically more likely to take risk, right? The visionary profile, and then the integrator they're focused on the day to day, right? And so that's what we're talking about. Can you explain, Adam? You mentioned you're a high I, high D. High A, high B, bunch of letters, right? For people that don't know what that means, explain kind of your personality. Some people will probably resonate with that.
I'll explain it through the DISC profile, and you can look up the DISC profile on Google. It's D, I, S, and C. The D is like you're super driven, you're like very alpha, very go, gas pedal. The I is your social skills. I shouldn't say skills. It's your social ability. Like how much are you like a big time people person? Do you just feed off of talking to people? The S is like pace or patience. When you have a low S, you want to go really fast. When you have a high S, you're more thoughtful and considerate, and you're thinking through deeply. You're not going to rush, that kind of thing. And then the C is like your details. So like, do you just love the kind of repetitive Google Sheets, Excel task, or you have a high C, you're high detail person. My wife's a super high detail person, extremely high. And she just kind of feeds off of the checklist and the task. So I am personally a high DI personality. So I have high drive, desire to win, but I also have extremely high people skills. Like one of my superpowers is connecting with people. I'm low on the S and the C. So I'm low pace. I want to go really, really fast, and my details are lower typically. Here's the crazy thing is, I'm actually a pretty good implementer. I can take idea to action faster than probably 95% of people. And I can do it. I can actually do it. And I don't just do it through people. I can personally do it. I would probably be a top 5% COO in any of the companies in our industry. Easy. I'm very confident in that because I implement my own business every day. I'm good at implementation. I'm more detail oriented than my profile would tell you. And I obviously want to win. So
yeah,
pretty driven for that.
And that's what this podcast is really about, is how do you find success, right? A lot of us have these, dreams, these big goals. And what are the actual activities that you do day to day to find success? Not just have a big vision, have a big dream, be able to sell the vision of the company, talk about how great you are, right? What's the day to day that we can do? And what Adam's learned how to do, and I love that you also said that you're more detailed than your profile would say, right? Because you don't really care what your weaknesses are. You do what needs to get done for the business to succeed, right? And so many people just, I'm not going to do that. No, that's not my strength. I'm not really an implementation guy. I'm more kind of an idea guy. I just kind of like to come up with the ideas, and I go. And what you're saying is, yeah, naturally you might be that way. But what you're really good at, and the reason that you're able to find success in Blackjack and all of your other businesses, is you execute, right? Whether you like it or not, you're gonna execute. And if you really don't like doing it, then you're gonna go find somebody that's gonna do it for you. But you're gonna make sure that they're executing. You're gonna implement. You're not just gonna hope that it works out. And one of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make is they go, I don't like doing this. I read somewhere, I heard on a podcast that if I don't like doing it, I should just go hire it out. And then they just stop there. They go hire it out, and they do what you and I have both done, which is leverage out a position. Don't give them any accountability. Don't give them any support. And then just go, why do they not work? That guy must suck, right? It's all on them, right? It's not on us because we're perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Well, what you're saying is, you implement, and if it's really something like when you do need to leverage off activities, you're still being that COO, right? Until you can find somebody that can replace you to say, okay, these are the things that need to be checked every single day. This is what you should be doing. How can I help you? How can I support you? Because at the end of the day, we work for our employees, right? They do not work for us. We work for them, right? We work, and our job is to support them, then help them succeed. When they succeed, we succeed every time.
It's all about the people, man. It really is. You're 100% right. If the people around you are succeeding, you will. It's really hard for you to fail.
Yeah.
When you make the people around you succeed, it's really hard for you to fail.
So let's talk about, we've talked about hiring salespeople. We've talked about marketing. Let's talk about hiring director level, because that's the next step for people, right? Director and then C-suite level, which are two different things. But director level, we'll kind of stop there. Now you have someone that is on a director level, kind of heading your sales, right? And so, how do you know you're ready for that? And then once you are ready for it, where the hell do you get somebody? How do you get a director to come on your team and manage other people for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure you do get ready for that. And honestly, it's kind of scary, right? Because if you're going to bring in somebody who's high performing into your world, and now they're counting on you to create opportunity for them. Like your job is to now create massive opportunity for them. And really high performing people don't want to stick around and hang out with losers. Like they want to be a part of something that's big and grow something and have other opportunities. If you can't provide that, it's going to be really, really tough. So you have to have a vision that they can fit into, first off. And how you find them is they're probably in your ecosystem right now. Honestly, I mean, these are people you probably know. You can go to headhunters and find them, but there are people in your world right now that are looking to join a team or do something more. Obviously Lindsay's a great example, already a successful flipper and had some life changes happen and was kind of just looking for a change and to be on a team. And I had just posted, and I do this every so often on social media, like this is what I'm looking for. I need somebody to help me do this, and here's my vision. And I'm very grateful that there are people who believe in it with me, and they're in the trenches with me and decide to join our team, and they see the opportunity, right? So your job is to provide opportunity and vision. That is the part of the visionary piece that, you're not a lot of guys, and we know a couple who are like, I'm just the idea guy. Like, you can't just be the idea guy. Like, ideas are fine, but to what end? Like, what does this thing look like in 3 to 5 years? Like, how big is it going to be? How much room for me is there in that company, in that opportunity? If your vision's not big enough, you're probably siphoning really talented people out of your ecosystem. And honestly, it's fear for a lot of people too. Like fear of the unknown. I don't know if I can do it. Am I willing to have that big of a vision and then fail? What if I fail and I'm a failure? My ego takes a massive hit.
Yeah, and you brought up that when you bring on an A player, especially director level, right? Somebody that's going to come on and be your director of sales, director of marketing, right? It is scary if you don't have your stuff dialed in too, because they're counting on you. And so all of your weaknesses are going to show, right? So I love that you said, I don't know if you're ever ready, right? But I know every time I've hired somebody that at the time I thought was too good for my organization, it's leveled up my company because I had to level up. I had to be a better leader, right? I had to provide more resources. I had to provide more opportunity. I had to figure out ways to get them more leads, to get them more appointments, right? To get them more contracts, to make them more money. And so now my problem to solve is how do I create a company where these people want to work, right? How do I create that sort of environment? And I love that you said that some people aren't vulnerable enough to say, I don't know if you're ever ready. But the reality is, a lot of times when you're hiring talent, they're really good. It's probably going to be scary because you think, what if they come on? Maybe they've worked for companies that are bigger than yours, that have better systems, that have better processes. And you go, well, what if they come on and I'm just, a phony to them, right? They're like, what is this, right? However, what I've noticed is, if you really, really go all in on your systems, go all in on your processes, you'd be surprised how well you can stack up against really good companies, right? Companies that, I've got one guy that I just brought on, he was with a huge nationwide company. And when he came on, he's like, dude, the onboarding here is like, I've never seen anything like this, right? And he was with a huge nationwide company. They just didn't have dialed in onboarding. Now they're going out of business. They were, $100 million company that didn't survive through the 2023 correction. And they're letting go of their salespeople, right? They're downsizing. And it's just believe in your abilities too. If you really have put in the work, you've put in the sales process, you've thought about, okay, if I was joining this company, what would I need to know? Is it documented, right? Are there processes? And so I love that you brought that up, man. Last thing I want to talk about here is you've got a couple of different things that you're doing. So for people that want to know more about Adam Whitney, right? People are like, I love this guy. I listen to his podcast. almost everybody already knows you, right? There's probably some people that haven't heard of you yet. Where can they find out more about you, and what else are you doing outside of wholesaling?
Yeah, to find out more, I'm all over social media at official Adam Whitney. If you go on Instagram, I'm on there. And then if they want to be see what I'm doing, I share every month across all my businesses. go.officialadamwhitney.com/newsletter. Always putting out, I try to be super authentic and transparent, the good and the bad. So obviously we have Blackjack, which we talked about extensively today. We started a title company in 2023 in Florida, Titan Title. If you need an investor-friendly title company, that's us. I'm on a general partnership team that does multifamily syndications. We bought 2 apartments last year, 224 units. I own a rental portfolio and company up in Milwaukee. I have equity in a couple other businesses that I'm on their board of directors for. So I'm deeply involved, man. I love real estate. I'm growing. I'm trying to grow my people into some of this stuff and help them to be uncomfortable with me as we kind of expand our reach. And I'll say this too, man. I think right now, really the past 12 months and going into now, we're in such a good time to be in real estate. People would say, that's crazy. The market, the transactions are down, the interest rates are up. Exactly. This is the time to gain market share, to get in the industry and make mistakes and start to build and build and build, because the people who made the most money are the ones who came into the 2008 crash, 2009 and 10, started buying up all the real estate and took that whole run up for a decade. Those people gained massive wealth. And that the only reason they did that was because they were positioned to do it because they'd been doing the work leading up to that. They were in the 2001 bubble. They were in the heated market in 2005 to 2007 before it all crashed. And then as soon as the crash happened, they were opportunistic and just gobbling up market share. And that's what they did. And that's what I think is right now, that's what we're doing. That's why I started a title company. I watched a bunch of title companies close their doors. And it was so funny. People were like, you can't start a title company. You don't have the right experience. And I was like, what? Well, we're starting a title company, and we started having the conversations in March. And by August, we did our first transaction and opened our doors in St. Pete and Tampa. And after August, we did 1 transaction. Then we did 4 or 5. And then we've been August, September, October, November, December. We did between 5 and 6 transactions a month. And then we went into February with 19 open files.
Damn. I love that you said that too. There's going to be so many people when interest rates drop, and I don't know when that will be, but when interest rates drop, everyone's going to come back, right? And then wholesaling is going to be back again, and, everybody's going to jump into it. And who do you think is going to win? The person that has to come in, in 2025 or 2024, whatever interest rates drop, rebuild all of their systems or start building all of their systems, and then, start getting traction 2 years later when interest rates go up again and then they leave. Or the people that spent all of the time when it was difficult, where no one's really making any money. Of course, there are people making money in our industry, but it's not 2021, 2022, right? Where you could just throw a rock and somebody will sell you their house and you could turn around and sell it to a hedge fund for $25,000 more, right? We're not dealing with that anymore. But we're putting in the work while things are hard. We're building the system while things are hard, right? So that way, when things get easier, we already have that built out. We've got a team, we've got systems, we've got processes, and we can take advantage of that market share. So awesome stuff, man. Any other words for the audience?
Now's a great time to get in. Start. If you're not in the business now, get in the right rooms. And if you're in the business, stay in the right rooms, stay connected with people in the industry. Keep pushing forward, man. Just keep going. You only lose when you quit.
I love it. So if you guys want to reach out to Adam is probably one of the only people that I know that has as much, a million things going on, but he provides value to everybody. He doesn't look down on anybody. He's a great guy to know. Go follow him on Instagram. Go show him some love. And Adam, thanks for coming on, man. This is Zeroed In Podcast. We're signing off.